Hello, everyone. Welcome to the stream, guys. So today we're talking about the devs have responded. They did this earlier in the week, and I just want to talk about it. So kind of walk through this. I know that Skinny Cheeks has made a video on it. I'm sure other people have as well. I actually watched part of that just because I wanted to see what Skinny's take was and see what he had his thoughts on it and what have you. I have it up here. I don't think we'll necessarily reference it, but it's a good video. Obviously, Skinny Cheeks does great stuff, so go check him out. Hey, Chicken, what's going on, man? Good to see you. So, I will. I just have to. I have to give a disclaimer, guys. I'm not on a lot of sleep. I will try. I'm going to try extra hard to make sure I'm on that. I'm on that copium. I don't actually have it here, but I'll probably get some. And I don't want to be too salty. I'm not trying to give anybody a hard time. I want to be positive. I like being positive. I don't like covering stuff negative. Having said that, no promises. We're talking ESO developers. I've been hurt before, guys. I've been hurt. What's up, Tater? What's going on? All right. That, preamble out of the way. We'll give everybody a second to get in here. Sorry about the late start. No excuse, really, if I'm being honest. I am getting an error here. Let me just make sure the stream is okay. We did have a problem once last night. I don't know what it was about. All right. So, man, so the developers responded to feedback, and well, let's just read through here. I'm hesitant to just read through because there is a lot of spin that goes on. Let's just look through it here. Let me pull it up a little bit larger for everybody. How's that? All right, let's take a look. Hello, all. We've seen a lot of feedback about some of the class and ability changes that are currently on PTS for Update 47. We hear your frustration and confusion about why some of these changes are being made, and we wanted to give you some additional context. Okay, so they're gonna explain to us why they're doing the things they are doing in the hopes that we'll understand and we won't be mad. Fair enough, right? I'm not mad at anybody for that. Let's see what else they have to say. We also understand that having to continually update builds with every patch can be tiresome and can detract from the fun and enjoyment of playing the way you want. Something is part of ESO's DNA. I mean, this is this DNA. This is okay, guys. All the stuff I said, I'm going to try to be nice. I'm going to get salty pretty much immediately here. All right. So when you put stuff like this in a release, okay. Playing the way you want is something as part of ESO's DNA. What does this mean? What does it mean? It means absolutely nothing. It is corporate speak. It is them reinforcing their tagline of play the way you want, right? It is not something that is actually a core part of the game. Can you play the way you want? Yes, but you can play the way you want in every game, So it's like them saying that ESO fam as like a hashtag ESO fam is like, no, we really mean that. It's not just corporate, whatever. We really mean that. No, it is. 100% it is, because hashtag ESO is not a good enough hashtag because 1,000 other things are hashtag ESO. So whenever you put stuff, so whatever, who cares, right? Yeah, filler words, Tater says. The issue is when you put that in your communication to your players, you're telling them that you're giving them corporate BS. And whatever, that this is why we respond really well to companies who talk to us like we're people and like they're gamers and we're gamers, and they all understand that. Also, I should make a point. This is not Amy's fault. This is just the way that ZOS tends to communicate. It's not one person's fault. But yeah, doing this sort of stuff is part of the problem. Anyways, I digress. Let's continue on. So actually, you know what? Hold on. So having to continue to update your builds every patch can be tiresome and can detract from the fun and enjoyment of the game. So the issue here is that they know this. They've known this for years. And in fact, it got so bad several years ago that I think that some of the larger creators had a little come to Jesus, feedback session with ZOS about, here, let me just trying to get this as large as I can without being too large, with ZOS. And, it was an issue where they're changing stuff so quickly. I literally released the same thing was happening that just happened where I released a video that was on a build guide, and those things take weeks and weeks of work, right? I'm putting in a lot of effort, whatever, and I make those because you guys really like them. You guys want them. They're very helpful for you all because most people want to get off work and they want to play a game and they want to have fun. And they don't want it to be frustrating. They want it to be fun. And the easiest way to do that is like, I could go, you guys could go through and read all the stuff about all the skills and everything else and figure it out, right? But that's like, it's a lot. And so you come to people who have build guides and you're like, yeah, give me a decent place to start. I'll customize it, right? That's what you guys do. I'll change it. I'll swap out a skill. I'll do whatever I want, But like, give me a decent place to start. Don't make it's not even that you can't, it's just that it takes mental energy. And so it's like, give me a decent place to start. That's a lot of what I do here. And hopefully I do a lot more. Hey, Franny, what's going on? But that's a lot of what we do. And, when you have that build, you're like, cool, I've got the build. I can change it around. I kind of start to understand a little bit more about how it works. Oh, I might want to swap with this skill, what have you. This got so bad though, where, players would like builds. I would like to make builds because that's what you guys want to watch, and that's what's helpful for you. And that's all I'm trying to do here. But it got so bad several years ago that it was like we couldn't make builds because people would ask like, oh, is that from update? It wasn't 46, but it would be like, oh, if a build was from update 46 and it's update 47, well, that build's old news. And so there's like this 3-month cycle. It's crazy. You can't cover all the builds and everything else. So it just wouldn't work. So what they said is like, we're going to go down to once a year. We're going to try to keep all of our major combat changes to one time a year. And it lasted for actually like 12 months. And it was a great time. It was a golden era for content creators, at least. And I think for players, because you guys got a lot of builds and it was like, people would be like, oh, do you have like an updated build? And it's like, I wouldn't change anything. Or if I did, it would be like, I would change this one thing or whatever. It'd be very, very minor. Things were good. Then they stopped like a year ago. It's like, some of those creators I think left. they don't cover ESO anymore. And it's like they thought the feedback wasn't valid anymore. And so they started making these changes every patch, a whole bunch of changes. And what's kind of wild about this is like, they're saying they know this. Whenever we read through the patch notes in our first video, it might've been the one before this, actually. Let me just double check. Was it the one before this? It was the very first patch note. So probably 11.1.0. Yeah, whenever I read this, and I talked about it whenever we were reading through it, is that they kept talking about, let me see if I can find it. Or maybe it is in 0.1. But they kept talking about how like, oh, we're keeping an eye out for these changes. We're going to keep changing things. We might need to keep changing things. And it really sounded like they were talking about ESO as if it was a game where things are supposed to change every 3 months. And that's how they would handle. So there are games like that. A lot of games like Diablo, those style of games, people replay through and they change things, and it's a lot of the same content, and then you kind of grind at the end game or what have you, and they make a lot of balance changes. Now, if you look at something like Path of Exile, to a lesser extent, I'm sorry, there's a handful of games in this genre. Last Epoch. So one of the things that I've had friends tell me about Last Epoch, which I have very little hours in. It's not even installed right now. Is that Last Epoch was a lot simpler, and Path of Exile was too complicated, too many things, whatever. And a lot of people would tell me that, or maybe I'm getting that wrong, but they would tell me that they would just look up a guide. That's the first thing you want to do, is look up a guide, right? Because it's too complicated. There's too many things, and literally when there are so many options, it does get to the point where it's like, you as a game developer can create like the possibility of combinations so large that no one can really solve the equation very much. And ESO, though, is not that game. ESO is, first off, the game is not that complicated. I know that, I'm not hating on anybody, right? Like, Zynode's made some jokes and done like some, there's like, however many million combinations or whatever. But the reality of the situation is there's 600, 700 sets in the game, and like a small fraction of those are actually worth anything. Many of the sets are literally just worse versions of other sets, and so on and so forth, right? So there's not actually that many combinations. A lot of the skills do roughly the same amount of damage, right? They scale almost exactly the same, and they also serve the same function. So there's a lot of things where it's like it's not actually that complicated. Most of the CP trees, right? There's only like 10 that are worth slotting for damage, for example, which is like one of the areas. And for DPS or for tanks and healers, there's less that are like really worth slotting. And there's usually like 4 or 5 main ones, right? But there's less than 10. Even though the CP tree looks really big, it's not actually that big of a deal. So ESO is just not that game. So that's how the game is. The player base. Most of the player base, and this is, I'm more of the, complex, whatever, throw stuff at me. I don't care, give me the complex, whatever. But most of the player base does not want that. I mean, they want a game, they can come home, they can play, and everything's good. They don't have to mess with everything, right? That's the player base. So them saying that, like, they start treating ESO like it's a different game and like their audience is totally different. And while I do like, a lot of the changes and breathing some fresh life into the game, you're just like, what are you guys, why are we having to relearn this lesson? And why don't you guys know this already? It's really perplexing to me. All right. So base game also comes along with some, oh wait, do we finish this? Yeah. Additionally, this week's testing includes, oh no, I'm sorry. I'm on the wrong thing. That's why I'm confused. All right. So what they say here? Yeah. We want to give you additional context. All right. Yeah. We also understand having continually update builds every patch can be tiresome and detract from the fun and enjoyment of the game. Then some corporate BS. In considering the community's feedback, we'll make the following changes starting in the upcoming week of U47 PTS, sometime after PTS week 2. Guys, a lot of people have quit getting on the PTS. There's still plenty of people that do, but a lot of them have quit because they've made it harder to get on the PTS. People are giving their time for free to help the game be successful, and they treat them very poorly for that. All right, since the release of U46, our aim has been to prevent excessive ultimate generation by limiting newer sources that subclassing introduced. Okay, so I am like fairly convinced in my mind that these guys just watched 8 Puppies, watched his video, and thought that was something new. That is, I think we need to petition 8 Puppies to do a video explaining the game to the developers, because they clearly don't understand it. Ultimate Generation has been out of control, if you want to call it that, for over a year, probably 2 years, an incredibly long time. And you know what? It's fine. It's actually a good thing, because what it creates is that newer groups don't have to work on a complex ulti rotation, right? Where one person's ulting, then another person's ulting, and another person, and you have to chain. So all of your supports have to coordinate very carefully, along with Pillager's Profit on your healers and everything, so that you can maintain 100% uptimes. Well, why is that bad? Well, it's not bad, but what that means is it's very difficult. So most groups aren't going to be able to do it. Well, that means that most groups are going to, it lowers the floor. Now, if you give everybody enough ulti generation, then they can just, hey, whenever you get your Warhorn, you Warhorn. Or it's actually like whenever you get enough for a Colo, you Colo. And then you tell the other person, whenever you see a Colo, you Horn. And if you have enough ulti gen, that's very easy. 2 people are doing it. There's not a complex rotation. Whenever I get my ulti, I hit it. That's easy. Man, that's super easy. And then you tell the other person, hey, whenever you see that Colossus go off, that's your cue to Horn. That's super easy. And so that makes it where the beginning group, the base level, the floor goes up. So everybody can do it. So this wasn't at all a problem. The other thing here is that typical ZOS, they're talking out of both sides of their mouth. They're saying things that are completely contradictory. Vatcher's asking a question here, says, is ulti-gen an issue, and why is it or isn't it? I wish they'd answer those questions. Changes have to start with questions. Yes. Why is ulti-gen a problem? I think that they watched 8 Puppies video where he's like memeing on stuff and being like, you got so much crazy ulti-gen. And so they heard that and were like, oh, this must be a problem. Literally, that's the only thing I can think of. It could be, Vatcher, it could be that they want to nerf DPS after they just gave us a bunch of DPS, which is I mean, that's classic ZOS, right? Like 100% that's something they would do. So it could be that. That could be another reason why ulti-gen is a problem. There are certain burn phases where you can burn through and you don't see any mechanics and what have you. Again, if DPS wasn't so high, it wouldn't be a problem. So they gave us all the DPS. Now they're trying to claw it back. A third option that I have been told from a friend of mine who is a developer for another company and a game designer and what have you, is that it seemed to him that they were trying to remove unique sources of ulti generation and just have it where it is all under, so to basically maybe like streamline things on the back end, or maybe streamline how they code things or whatever, but streamline things. That was his thought whenever he read these changes. They didn't tell us that, and they might never tell us that, even if that was the case. Which again goes back to the issue of like poor communication and gaslighting us and not giving us good information. So we don't know Vatra is really but it's not. It hasn't been. Nothing has changed. So the idea here is what they're saying is that like, oh, with subclassing, it introduced more ulti generation. No, it didn't. None of us are taking part of what they're talking about here, and part of the changes they made as well is to class sources. So for those who don't know, every class in update 46 and before, for the longest time, I don't even know how long, has had some passive that when you use some ability from that skill line or meet some condition will generate a little bit of ultimate. And then there's a cooldown. And basically what it works out to is that you can generate an extra 0.5, half an ultimate per second. Now, on average, you're generating 4 or 5 ulti a second. If you're like a ulti bot, you can generate way more than that. If you're like a support and what have you, your ult can be way higher, above 10 ultimate per second on average. Fairly, I say easily. I mean, you got to do a lot of stuff, but you absolutely can. So you're looking at like a 0.5% on the high end. Like, this is not the problem source for ultimate generation if it was a problem. So again, none of this makes any damn sense. So it's just like, I don't know what they're doing. There are real problems in the game, and this is not one of them. So it's pretty perplexing. Okay. But a more targeted approach doesn't hurt those who aren't subclassing. Nobody is subclassing to get ultimate except for into Nightblade and siphoning, where you get and where you used to drink, if you drank a potion, you would gain 20 ultimate. They just changed it in update 46 to where now you get 30 ultimate instead of 20 ultimate. They gave us 15% more ultimate from a particular passive. Why did they do that if ultimate generation is a problem? None of it makes any sense. And like, it just doesn't. There's no, and again, when I probably have to stop reading through some of this stuff, guys, because when these guys are so clueless about how their game works, I, as a creator, don't know how to, I don't want to talk, I don't want to just bash these guys, but I'm sorry, they're incompetent at their jobs. And there's no other way to say it. That's what's going on here. They just don't know what they're doing. Now, is there some situations where ultimate generation is excessive? People are, PvP, they're dropping, ults every so long. That's actually the problem. Yeah. I'm sure they are, but the reasons they're giving, the logic they're giving, what they're doing makes no sense. Joe says, ZOS operating under the premise that all change is progress. Shake my head. Change for the sake of change isn't moving the game forward, in my opinion. Yeah. Okay. All class passives that were adjusted to a major and minor heroism effect. This is what they changed early in the week, and it was I don't think I covered this on stream. So they changed all those class passives to be mostly minor hero, all of them to be minor heroism, so the one I was talking about, and some of the things they changed to be major heroism, right? So that you can't stack. For those who don't know, the way the major minor system works is if you get minor heroism, you can only get it. Like, you can only get minor heroism. If you have 3 effects that give you minor heroism, they don't stack. It doesn't matter. So that's the way the major minor system works. And then if something is not part of them, if it doesn't say major or minor, then it's a unique source and does stack with everything else. Okay, so they had changed it where there was no unique sources or very few. They were almost all part of the major minor system. Okay, now once again, unique ultimate. So all class passes were adjusted. So they readjusted them back to where all the things that were major and minor heroism are now again unique ultimate sources. However, the passive abilities that generate minor heroism during week 1 will now share a cooldown, so they cannot be stacked. Okay, the things that were giving minor heroism. Remember, guys. Okay, so literally nobody was doing this. Is the issue here. Literally no one was doing this. No one was grabbing skill lines so that they could get 0.5 ulti a second. It's absolutely ridiculous. Oz says, I thought it was because people use barrier with 100% uptime. Oz, so I think that people thought that, and I think that the developers thought that, and I think 81 Puppies did a video indicating that. Let me show you something. Here, let me just, I don't know, we'll pull up a new tab here. Let me show you something.
Hi, I'm Skinny Cheeks.
Hold on, Skinny. No, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to get your, yeah, here we go. Let me show you something, about ulti generation and why this hasn't been a problem. Sorry, Admiral Digby is a real person. Here we go. I think it's Admiral Digby. I could be wrong. Let me find it. There we go. I think it's Static Squad. This one might be good. All right, we'll mute it. Let's see what we got here. Yeah. If you look, let me make sure you guys can see it. No, I'm in the way. Let me move. Okay. In the bottom left-hand corner of this screen, guys, you're going to see a count. Barriers, magma shells, and then it goes through and it has the number. Okay? This is for a trifecta of Rockgrove. Oh, and I also need to establish this. Hold on one second. So this is from a year ago. Okay? This is from a year ago. So remember when I said all this stuff has been out for a long time? If you look through here, they're barrier spamming, okay? So we've got on the bosses, 17 on Oaks, 24 on Basai. Zalvaka, we're at like 22. What do we end with? Something crazy. 79. Oh, does he go through all of them? Hold on. All right, total defensive ults, 79. Okay? 79 defensive ults. You've been able to do this for forever. Barrier spamming is not that useful, too. It's really, like, it can be useful, but if your healers are doing their job, it's only for, like, a little bit of safety if you're doing a trifecta. You're not, like, a barrier spam in a regular... Who cares, too, is the other thing. Like, it doesn't matter. This is just not an issue. It's just not. You just need to learn. If I see people barrier spamming, usually in like an average group, like I know people want to do it, usually that person is like an incredibly bad healer. I'm not trying to throw shade at anybody. I'm telling you, like, I have seen people try to do it, and basically what happens is anytime the barrier's not up, they're 100% relying on the barrier, and whenever it's not up, then like people die because they don't have their heals down. Whereas if you have a decent healer, not even an amazing healer, they can keep everybody healed up 100% of the time regardless. So barrier spam is really just like to keep people from dying whenever they make a mistake, and it would kill them otherwise. It's just not it. What's the problem with it? There's just no problem with it. That's the issue. It just doesn't make any sense. PvP, again, yeah, it's been like this for over a year. I don't know. It just doesn't compute that like all of a sudden this is a problem. Why didn't we deal with this 2 years ago, right? And then why are we adding more ultimate? You know, you're talking about barrier spam, like that would be on a healer who's running siphoning that just got a buff to generate more ultimate. None of it makes any sense. So I can't make sense out of something that just doesn't make any sense. But I understand that, but there's just no problem. And most groups are not doing that. And the people that are, that like, that's cool. If that's what you want to do in your group, you know, those guys got Planesbreaker. Is it a problem? Do we have too many people getting Planesbreaker? I don't think so. The trifecta for Rockgrove? I don't think so. And if you don't believe me, come watch our Rockgrove hard mode, not a trifecta, hard mode tonight, and you can see what it's like. It's absolutely not an issue for the game. It's just not. And even if you're barrier spamming, people will still die. So you have to be good. You have to know what you're doing. That group, I'm sure, practiced for a very long time to get that good. All right. So we originally discussed the week one changes, but feared gameplay experience of these effects would result in confusion and jarring gameplay experience since passive cooldowns cannot be messaged clearly. Absolutely no one ever has paid attention to keeping up that zero 0.5 ultimate per second from class abilities. Either you do it automatically with a lot of the class skill lines, or you generally don't worry about it. Okay, and then in the two groups, the 24 people in ESO in any given year that are score pushing that hard, probably still don't care about this because the bigger problems are other things. But maybe those 24 people out of the however many hundreds of thousands that play ESO are the ones that really matter. But we've seen a lot of discussion suggesting that we likely over worried about this. Yeah, I mean, again, they just don't know the basics of the game, so understandably, they don't know this. They had a chance to hire Skinny Cheeks, guys. Skinny Cheeks wanted to work for them, and they didn't hire him, and that was one of the dumbest things they've done in recent memory. Okay, we'll also be introducing a failsafe for the Arcanist class mastery script with Banner Bearer, so it's not a complete loss of power. It will generate ultimate if the effect did not generate a crux. So Skinny Cheek said something in his video that, and go check it out if you haven't seen it. It's the one I had up over there. So he said something like, apparently a lot of times this banner tends to proc first, or he thought it would in the logs or whatever is kind of the impression I got. I haven't looked that intense into it, but he thinks that most of the time this won't do anything. I will also note, if the problem is generating ultimate, then why are we adding ultimate generation to a skill? A skill that everybody runs right now, currently. So if this is good enough that we want to keep running banner, then everybody will be generating more ultimate, and they just tried to nerf it. Again, this makes no sense. Is it the healers, the supports? We already talked about it. For the healers and supports, this change was like it's a point. It's less than 5% of their total ulti gen if they're an ulti bot. So it just doesn't make any sense. None of this stuff makes any sense. Why are they saying one thing and then doing another? It just doesn't make any sense. Finally, we'll be looking at our sorcerer adjustments and reiterating and reverting some of the adjustments based on your feedback. Lightning form will again grant major resolve instead of minor force to retain its unique damage, offensive, hybrid effort. Bound armor will again grant minor protection. Guys, for those who don't know, bound armor is bugged right now. I don't know if Zoss is aware of this, but bound armor, if you get hit with a combat prayer, which normally gives minor resolve, which also bound armor does, bound armor will stop giving minor resolve. And so there's tanks out there who are going to be counting on that, and it's going to be dropping from them because they might get hit with a combat prayer every once in a while, but most of the time they're counting on bound armor providing that minor resolve rather. So it'll again grant minor protection as a basis rather than major resolve. Additionally, the active effect of the abilities will now scale in duration with your armor rather than a flat amount. The max magic and stamina increase in the ability in its morphs will be moved to dark magic, which will exist on the blood magic passive. Bound armaments will have a higher chance of applying sundered, so it reaches a closer power level to the grim focus morphs. We'll have to see. This applying like a higher chance of applying sundered. I know that Skinny was he was like, how high? Because he really thought this is going to be a nerf. There are a few skills that have an even higher base chance, a very bespoke base chance of applying sundered. But yeah, go check out his video. He covers this, I think, well. I don't really have anything to add to it. Luna says, I wouldn't say that it won't activate ulti-gen most times, but definitely less uptime than it should be expected since the other part is useless. I'm sorry, we're talking about the Arcanist thing. Yeah. I just think that even if it's like activating it all the time, based on like I'm using their own logic is my main point, Luna. Not to I don't really disagree with you. I'm just using their own logic. You guys have too much ulti gen. We need to claw some back. Also, we're going to add ulti gen, right? Like if they can't understand why this doesn't make any sense, I don't know what to say. Like Anything I say will just sound incredibly insulting and belittling, and I'm not trying to do that. I'm just not. But like, if you can't understand why these things don't make any sense, I don't know what to tell you. As we mentioned before, the release of U46 and subclassing, we will continue to work on tuning these abilities to achieve greater class balance. It's worth noting that changes above are also subject to change. And we'll continue to listen to your feedback before these go live. In the months ahead, we're going to continue to look at balancing, and we'll make additional adjustments. Yeah, they keep saying this. Guys, they don't. Zos, if you're listening, we do not want more changes. Figure something out, do it, and then stop. You got to stop. You're going to make people quit the game. You already have. You're going to make more. Stop. You just got to stop. You got to. Oh my gosh. For now, we hope that amended abilities are more in line with your expectations and you continue to enjoy subclassing. It's a cool thing. It would have been really cool if it would have been fully baked and they wouldn't have served us. I feel like, you know what, with subclassing, do you guys ever watch the Great British Baking Show where Paul Hollywood pokes the cake and he's like, it's raw, I can't eat it? That's what I feel like. That's how ESO patches come out. I'm like poking them. I'm like, it's raw. I can't eat that. I don't want to eat that. That's raw. Like, it's not fully baked. Vatcher says, please God, revert the meteor change. Man, I don't even remember the meteor change. Do I need to look back at it? Thanks again for all the thoughtful and constructive Discord. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, your input is value to us as a direct result. Okay. So, I've been pretty realistic about this. I do want to say, and you know what, I might even bring out some notes of a few things that one of my friends sent to me recently. But I do want to say that there are some really good things about what's going on. And there are some really good changes that have happened. And the issue is not literally the issue at this point is the changes, that there are changes at all. Like, we knew this was coming. We knew it was going to be a problem. We knew they didn't balance PvP. We knew that the whole issue with the Sork skill line is because the skill lines don't make sense. And so some of them are completely useless, or you just never want, it's not even, it's like, oh, there's a few good things in there, but it's never the best thing to do. It's never makes sense. And it's so much worse than other options. If it was just close, it would be so much better. And the reason for that is because they didn't plan ahead and actually like move skills around in anticipation. And so they're putting people through all this grief because they failed to plan and they couldn't like kind of look ahead. And so they're changing. The good news about it is like some of this stuff did need to be changed. Like some of the stuff they have changed, not this stuff, but like some of the stuff they have done did need to be changed. There were some actual issues that they were addressing. Shooting Star caps out at 80 ultimate refunded. Oh, okay. It's dumb. Yeah, I mean, how many people are like leveling up? I'm like, personally, I'm fine with that because I felt like a lot of sweaty groups it generated them a lot of probably not a lot, honestly, but it generated them revenue because people would have to go out and buy the Mages Guild skill line because no one wanted to level it up multiple times, Vatra, just so you'd be able to use Shooting Star. I don't want to be asked to run it, so I kind of don't mind that if it's not as good. But yeah, taking power away from people, clawing it back, it's just going to piss everybody off for sure. Luna says they should focus on fun updates, buffing what is not strong currently. The only thing I ever wanted to really nerf was Beam, and I feel like they just did it anyways. Yeah. 100%. I think that most people, most games are of the mind that you just got to buff. Just buff, infinitely. And if you need to, buff enemies in some ways, but so that, things aren't completely trivial or what have you. Or if you have something so overtuned that everybody's like, yeah, that's broken, then you can put a slight nerf on something. But they just gave us all this extra damage, and now they're pulling it back, and it's just got to stop. It's just really frustrating for people. Okay. That out of the way, a couple of things here. I actually go back to the first notes, the first patch notes here, and I don't know if I can find everything, but I just have it up here as a visual aid, I guess. It don't actually need it, but I want to make sure we got a trial here on the hour, so I want to make sure I'm keeping a track of time there. So excuse me for checking my watch. A couple of things they did is that I've had a friend who has reported to them about 20 months ago about a block bug, and I've reported this before. I've done videos on it about 20 months ago, and they put something in the forums, and they got like one response by a community manager, and then that was it. It appears they have told me they can no longer on PTS replicate the bug. It appears like they finally fixed block, at least that particular block bug. And I think that that is great. That is awesome. 24 months, it's kind of a long time. It is what it is. They fixed it. Cool. I'm really happy with that moving forward. This is something that is absolutely it's just absolutely critical for a player to have a good experience. And so I'm just glad that they finally did it. You know, things they did that are weird, like the Nightblade wasn't a good spot. Again, the problem, everybody agrees on the Nightblade, the assassination skill line, that it's too much crit. And they didn't go after the crit on the passives. They instead went after an active skill that is a core part of playing a Nightblade and made it where it's going to be used less, not more. And I think that was kind of a weird. All right, sorry. I'm sorry. I'm talking about negative things. I want to talk about. Maybe I can cheat over here and check my cheat sheet. I want to talk about some of the positive things that have happened. You know, that maybe things have moved in the right direction. I would say overall, the game has gotten better. The game has gotten easier. There are now more options. If you want to build more survivable, there are options for you. If you want to build for more DPS, those are generally different options. And you can still find a pretty good balance of both things, which I think is great. There are ways of only grabbing like one subclass and doing 140 damage, 140k damage or something like that. So there are a lot of things like that that are really good. The nerf to the Arcanist banner, okay? The nerf to the Arcanist banner overall was great. It needed to happen. What they did, does that make any sense? No, like not at all. But the issue was that everybody really needed an Arcanist base. You absolutely needed an Arcanist, and it was best for literally every single class. With the changes, I don't think that'll generally be true. Is it still outside? Yes. But the problem is that most classes, their class mastery sucks and it does nothing, or it will, if it does something, it's for one of the three specs. So a very small minority of players will even get the benefit of that class mastery. So what they really needed to do is this is a theme, is they need to buff the class masteries for the other classes, not nerf the Arcanist one, because that's the problem. They needed to buff the others, not nerf the one good one. Luna says buffing enemies should still be okay, better than nerfing players. Yeah, I don't know. Nerf on Grim Focus was justified to me. Using it as a passive skill is just weird. Luna, I agree. It's just out of the two problems, I think that the Nightblade assassination, I don't care as a Nightblade player. I think it's great, right? I think most people would agree that the passives were the biggest issue there. I absolutely agree that Grim Focus, the passives, because you're already going to run that skill line anyways, because all the crit damage it gives, the passives from that, the extra weapon and spell damage, were so high that it was like, why would we not run this? And it's crazy though. The thing is that they buffed it and then they nerfed it. So again, you see a lot of like, they don't know what they're doing. They buff something and then they have to claw it back because it wasn't a good change. And it seems almost like they're incapable of knowing and making good changes. And again, they had the opportunity to hire Skinny Cheeks and they didn't do it. So I am going to rake them over the coals a bit about this. So it just kind of, yeah. Bring back Mage Light. All right. Another thing that was really cool, and I think this was probably unintentional, excuse me as I sip my espresso, is that they had basically made it where no one needed to run Magicka or stamina potions. Everybody could run Tri-Stat potions in an organized group, because if you had a tank who had igneous weapons, everybody ran, like, it was best in slot for all DPS in a group setting to run a skill that had the crit bonuses that you would get from the weapon or spell damage potions. So igneous weapons provides the weapon and spell damage, and then you had some skill that provided you with the crit. And so that made it where it was, again, a lot easier. You could run a mag tune and have extra stamina for roll dodging and blocking and what have you, because if you're new or you're a beginner or whatever, you might need more stamina, you might be blocking more, and that was one way. Also, it made things easier, because if you drink weapon or spell damage potions, they only provided you with one of those resources. And in the new hybrid meta, that didn't always make sense. You might be on a build that actually used more stam than mag, but you stacked most of your Magicka costing stuff. They can't seem to making hybrid the various potions seemed like it was too much. They couldn't do it for whatever reason. They never completed that part. And having everybody just run, and kind of deprecating, so like, no longer, most people no longer using weapon and spell damage potions was a good way, just kind of like let those kind of not die entirely, but like be relegated to more niche situations, and everybody use tri-stat potions, was a fine thing to simplify the game and make things easier, and they didn't do that. Another thing that I want to say, and guys, I'm trying to, please believe me, I am trying to keep it positive. I don't want to do these. This is why I haven't done this video before now, and why I don't know if I want to cover this. I'm not gonna cover ESO, but like, I don't know. It's just hard to cover this when they do things that are this blatantly don't make sense, and I don't know how to explain to the they should know this stuff. This is not something every player should know, but the developers, for the love of God, should at least understand. But the benefit, or another good thing about this, is that, and I was honestly, like, them listening to our feedback and actually making changes, incredibly rare. And a new person's in charge, maybe that trickles down to the rest. Maybe they're turning over a new leaf. Maybe they're trying to do something different. What I would like to see, and we'll never, like, I don't think the company culture is such, like, I don't know. It's really hard to move a ship that's been, heading in the same direction for so long. It's really hard to turn it to go a different direction. But if we did see a cultural shift where they started listening to feedback and they started fixing these bugs in a reasonable time frame, or as fast as they can, that would be an amazing step in the right direction. What we'd actually need to see from them is just a lot of humility. I would like them to come out and say, you know what, guys, we've made mistakes. Things aren't going great. We're not just going to be like, oh no, their the end of year letters, which I've read many on stream. Every year, it's like them patting themselves on the back and telling themselves how great they've done. And when the player base doesn't feel like that, man, I know they write that partially. It's partially for the players. It's partially for the employees of the company. It's partially for their bosses, and it's partially for investors, right? And if you can imagine, players are on the bottom. That was almost a hierarchy of how it goes. The last person those letters are really for is players. The first person they're probably for is investors. Second one, bosses. Those two might be interchangeable, and then employees, and then eventually players. That's who those letters are actually written for. But they're usually just self-congratulatory, a self-licking snow cone, if you will, where it just doesn't make any sense. And they're just, they need to come out and say, you know what, like, we don't know what we're doing, is what they really need to do. I think they would engender so much more support from the community, and they might be able to get the people that have already given up on giving them feedback. They might be able to get those people back. I will tell you again, as someone who does what I do, that getting feedback from your community, from the people who enjoy what you do, is one of the most valuable things you can get. And I will tell you too, that getting negative feedback is more valuable than positive feedback. if you guys are like, hey, I like that video, I say that like sometimes that's so. There's two parts of that. One on like the emotional side, it's great to hear. Absolutely, does feel good. Please don't stop doing that. The second part of that is like, yeah, it is good to know what people like, so I can do more of that. A lot of what I look at is like the numbers, like what do people watch? Do more of that, for the most part. But it is very helpful to get things that are like, hey, I didn't like this. Your audio's bad. Why is the visual like this? Or that stuff is, oh, why didn't you cover this? You mentioned this skill, but I don't know what skill line it's in, and it's a different. The morph version doesn't tell me the base morph. So why don't you include the base morph in your videos? All that kind of stuff is very helpful and helps me improve much more quickly. And Zaw seems to not like that feedback. And a lot of these companies act like they get too much feedback and there's no way to deal with it. And that's wild to me. That's absolutely wild to me. If a person who is not in a customer facing business feels that way, I can understand why they feel that way. But if you are in a customer facing business, that is the job. That's the job. If you can't do that, you can't do your job, and someone else should replace you because that is the job. Luna says the fact that feedback was heard and they reverse changes was definitely a good sign. Absolutely, completely agree. Even if they did dumb stuff mixed, for me, it's a win. Absolutely, I would agree, Luna. Oz said, did they reverse the bound armor too? Getting major resolve by slotting it would be nice on a tank. They did reverse that, Oz. Generally speaking, Oz, there are like 3 buffs you got to keep up as a tank man, and major resolve is like one of those main ones. If you want something where it's a little bit more easy and kind of combined, I don't know about the hybrid meta. Historically, it's been the Nightblade would be a good way to go because you have one ability that will provide you with major resolve, and also it's your main heal, and also it gives you damage reduction buffs. See my 1-bar Nightblade build, which you could still use for something that's very simple. I have a 1-bar Nightblade build. If you want something a little bit more simple, you might give that a shot. I think it's the easiest class to tank on with 1 bar. Tater says, speaking of, love that scribing skills for healer video. A+. Hey, I appreciate it, Tater. We're gonna do one for the tanks as well, man. I appreciate it. Thank you. And then Disco says, thank you, Night Horror. I appreciate your honest feedback. You're a legend. Hey, guys, I wasn't trying to fish for compliments, but I do appreciate it. Make Sorcerer strong again. Vatra, Sorcerer's not bad, man. I can probably hook you up with a build where it's mostly Sorc, where you can do quite a bit damage, man. With only like subclassing like one class out, man. Maybe I'll work on that one next. I thought about doing it, but I've done a lot of sorcerer stuff recently, so I was thinking about doing something different. But for you, my friend, I want the OG feeling of Sorc though. With the frag spam and like the frag procs. Yeah. Oh, that's weird. Is this crazy on? Oh, it looks normal on OBS. Looks crazy on my screen. Tater says, I'm a healer main. Will take any info you can throw out. Okay. Been playing since release and still learn new stuff all the time. Awesome. Cool, man. Well, I am happy to help. I think we're on the right character. My screen looks crazy, and I don't know what to do about it. Oh, there it goes. Okay, cool. It was looking normal for you guys, but it was looking crazy for me. Guys, we've got a Godslayer prog that has been off for a couple of weeks, so today might be a little rough on my from my perspective. But I think we're gonna hop in there and we're gonna join in with those guys. So only an hour today, guys. I just want to say I am sorry. Like when someone, I feel like I'm being lied to, and when I feel like there's crazy stuff being done, it gets my blood pressure up. I don't want to be like this. And I think the best thing is maybe to just, I don't know. I just want you guys to know that that's not the kind of content I want to make. I don't want to be like, why are you stupid? Why are you doing these things? Why are you making these millions and millions of dollars and like don't know how to do basic? I don't want to do that. I just don't know how else to react when it's just a visceral reaction whenever stuff is like that is done. So I don't know. All right. Okay, we're gonna hop over. Let me kick. YouTube will end the stream and then we'll start a new one here. All right, guys. And then we got 4 hours of trial, so lock in if you're hanging out for a bit. All right, let me make sure that it's going to kick you guys over. If it sometimes it doesn't, guys, you know what to do. Just hit the refresh button or go to my main page and you'll be able to find me there. Yeah, Godslayer group with Nani. I love running with Nani. She is a gem. But I'll definitely take a sort card when you've got it made. Okay, but don't jump content. Okay, I appreciate it, man. All right. Do you think they will take the idea of crossplay seriously or just fairy tale to keep interest up? Tater, can I answer that in the next stream, man? Is that okay? So I can end this one? I think you're going to say yes, so I'm going to do it, okay, man? Because I got to hop over. Okay, awesome. All right, we'll be right back, YouTube. Twitch, hang out.